I count him braver who overcomes his desires than who conquers his enemies. For the hardest victory is over self. Aristotle. Let's talk about the modern Western world for a minute. Objectively, you could argue that this is the best era to live in. And I'd agree to a certain extent. I can get lost in virtual worlds for as long as I can afford to. I have the fattest and richest foods available to order at my fingertips. I can continuously watch content that overflows me with stimulus to the point where I never get bored. And even if I do, I can just scroll to the next one because my ADHD dislikes videos that are longer than 10 seconds. Give me my dopamine now. I don't want to wait. I can't afford to wait. What do you mean? Finally, an era where I can overstimulate my brain to the point where I forget all existential dread and the inevitable death that awaits me in the future. This era do go hard though. Actually, it's crazy how many conveniences we have today and we don't even realize it. We can satisfy most if not all our desires with one click of our finger, and our brain rewards us for this type of behavior. It's the reason why addiction exists in the first place. That is basically how the chemical dopamine works. It rewards us with pleasurable feelings for actions it considers good for our survival, like socializing, eating filling foods, or having sex, because, well, it wants us to survive and not die. You know, I guess that kind of makes sense, yeah. And it makes us remember the actions that led up to having this reward. It even gives us reminders and impulses to compel us to do these types of actions. It is the little brain chemical that provides us with the drive needed to succeed in surviving. The problem is that the brain certainly did not expect to have access to all these pleasures so easily, and thus we get addicted to them because they're so easy to get. Our drive to live a fulfilling life is then hijacked by a drive to live hedonistically. Okay, look, there has always been hedonistic behavior in human society since long ago. We can look at the wealthy Romans, for example, having their private gladiator parties and big orgy parties, but that was only a very small percentage of the population. The internet is now accessible to 5 billion people. You can see how this can pan out if we take the wrong step. Look, it's very easy to satisfy our desires in the short term today. If I feel lonely, I just open up my good old friend the Hub and go in for a proper, respectable whacking session. I had my own personal harem around me, and I could switch and choose as many videos as I want, and even watch them all at the same time. And that gave me an addiction because we're not supposed to have this kind of stimulus in the normal life. And even without that, I can simulate friendships and intimacy by consuming content that doesn't make me feel alone anymore. No need to actually put in the effort to talk to real life people when I can actually get talked to on the screen without me putting any effort of my own. It's such an easy option to choose for us that we have no choice but to fall into this addiction, into this internet addiction without even noticing it. And for our generation who grew up on the internet, we literally get exposed to it at a young age, when our brain is still forming ideas about our personality and the world. It's still so malleable. We don't know any better. We think it's awesome that we can go on these amazing adventures on our screens, living the incredible life of a virtual character who accomplishes his goals and quests easily, with little effort on our part, when we are in actuality raising our brains to getting used to getting rewards easily. Humans were never meant to grow up having access to all these pleasures at their fingertips, but to be honest, I'm sort of excited to see it in a morbid way, like you would view a scientific experiment, like the effect asbestos had on the poor lungs of those mine and construction workers. But now it's going to be a generation whose attention span lasts 5 seconds, who cannot bear boredom and can't find meaning or purpose in their lives because it's much easier to distract themselves with unlimited content and stimulus being poured in their brains at every second. Look, as it always happens with new phenomena like this, science lags behind actual experience. So unfortunately, I think we will only see true scientific discussion of this effect on social media on the brain at minimum in a couple of years. We do see increasing statistics in loneliness, anxiety, and depression, but for now the correlation is not good enough with social media to point the finger at it, but I'm sure we will see it in a couple of years. Although when we see a random 5-year-old in a restaurant watching videos on an iPad with 100% volume, seriously, why do they always have to listen to full volume so everyone in the restaurant can listen to them? Anyways, I feel we all instinctively know that it won't be good for their brain. Over the years, I've tried so many interests and hobbies only to lose interest in them rather quickly. I thought it was maybe because of my personality type or just because I really liked novelty. To be honest, I think it was more because my brain was not used to doing actually hard things at that point in time. I've gotten so used to having easy access pleasures that I didn't really know what struggling was. It's a given that when you first start trying to learn a skill, even if you're passionate about it, that you're going to suck at it, you're going to be really shit at it. It's the first step to becoming good after all, right? We learn from our mistakes. But there's absolutely nothing satisfying in the moment about being bad at it. The satisfaction of learning comes much later. It's long-term gratification. Our addiction to the internet, I think, reduced our patience to a microscopic level. We want rewards now, so when things actually get tough in the moment, we cop out, or we just distract ourselves, or we get bored and we do something else that is much easier to do. Of course, it's obvious that we will choose the much easier option of getting instant gratification. Our brains actually want that for us because it thinks that it's the easier path to our survival. It's the shortest path to our survival. Today, the comfort zone is so huge and spacious that there's no reason to get out of it and explore things that make us uncomfortable, things that make us stronger and more fulfilled in the end. We literally have to summon inhuman levels of willpower individually against massive corporations with teams of statisticians and scientists knowing the ins and outs of the human brain and how to exploit it. And they're exploiting that knowledge against us to make profit. I really don't want to sound like a conspiracy theorist here with all these, massive corporations attacking us, but at the same time, I have to admit that it feels like we're being controlled in the sense that we almost can't prevent ourselves from using social media, especially since it's not something that adds much value to your life in the long term, if you think about it. So why do we use it? Because it's addicting and rewarding in the short term. Yes, you might argue that social media does bring value. You wouldn't have encountered this video without it. I guess I'm getting a bit full saying that my video actually brings value to you. Hopefully it does. But that's not the point of this video. The problem is that 90% of social media ends up being completely useless. Do you remember any of the videos that you watched yesterday? Do you remember any of the posts that you've seen scrolling on Reddit, Instagram, or Facebook? Okay, maybe not Facebook. We don't use that anymore. I'd wager that for most of them, you don't. And I include myself in that statement. I scrolled Reddit yesterday, I watched YouTube videos, and I guess I remember that PewDiePie Japan vlog, but that's all. Although I remember the stupidest fucking memes for some reason. Get out of my head, man! Get out of my head! Even for me who knows about all these negative consequences, I still can't completely stop my social media use. I even installed an app on my phone that prevents me from using social media for more than 15 minutes, and I found ways to circumvent that, but let's not talk about that today, okay? The only ones I really use today are YouTube and Reddit, but I use them a lot. The urges to use them when I feel empty are very, very strong. They are both a type of social media where you have good control over what you consume, especially if you don't give in to the recommendation feed or whatever. Although in the end there are much better ways to absorb quality information, like reading books or watching documentaries, for example. There is a big difference between consuming intentional information that you wanted to consume and consuming unintentional information that just happened to find itself in front of you. I know so much shitty trivia. Anyways, this huge rant, I'm sorry, about easy access modern pleasure was all to bring about the topic of dopamine detox, a sort of diet that seeks to correct our addictions to self-destructing behaviors like using too much social media, porn, or really anything else on the internet. Modern addiction theory suggests that addiction is a bit like bacteria. Given the right environmental factors, it will expand and expand until it consumes the most it can imagine. And the environment for internet use is really the perfect one for everyone to get addicted to it. We are living in an environment where it is practically impossible to dodge the use of internet, social media, or porn. The responsibility now falls on us taking back control of our tiny little brain cells, brain chemicals, using what willpower we have left to try to live a more fulfilling life. Dopamine detox serves as a gateway to being more mindful about your bad habits in the long run. When you try to stop using your phone, the use of social media, the use of easy access entertainment, porn, or really anything else that serves as instant gratification, it makes us realize how addicted we actually are to it. It's seriously crazy. Understanding why we do all this dangerous and unhealthy stuff in the long run is the first step to creating a more considered life. Why do we constantly compare ourselves to others? Why are we never satisfied with what we have? Why do we run away from painful but rewarding things? Fucking dopamine, man. But at the same time, if we know how to exploit our dopamine receptors, we can also orient ourselves towards aiming for long-term gratification, which is much more fulfilling in the long run. We can boil it down to willingly preventing ourselves from distraction when we feel boredom or loneliness, and instead addressing those in a healthier way. I use your run-of-the-mill cognitive behavioral method, or CBT, which is basically just viewing your own thoughts as you would a movie from an outside perspective, seeing where they come from, how they got here, and from there to accept them and move on as something separate from you. Way easier said than done though. What I dislike about dopamine fasting is the trendy challenge aspect of it, just like another TikTok challenge. If I survive one challenging week without all these pleasurable actions, I'll be a changed man forever. What's the point of getting 1 week of peace of mind from distractions, feeling all fulfilled afterwards, and then redoing the cycle all over again? Why not just maintain this moderation that made you fulfilled in the first place? Because you can't help yourself? Well, that's the whole point of an addiction in the first place. It's because you can't moderate yourself. Change your life in 30 days or less, or your money back guaranteed. Just try it out first and you'll see your life will change. Although I said all that, the internet is not as bad as I make it out to be here. I'm stating these things as a sort of shock value because it can definitely become an addiction for most people, including myself. We can choose to use it in a healthier way if we want to, but it's just very, very hard when there's much easier options on that same internet, a click away. These systems were created for convenience, so it would be pretty dumb to not take advantage of them for improving our lives and the ones of those around us. But that same convenience traps us. It can never replace real-life connections or experiences. I might swallow those words in the future though when VR technology gets better. I'll probably be dead by then, so no biggie. The overstimulation of the internet desensitizes us to the point where real life is all bleak and gray. Experiences and connections that would have been super fulfilling before are now boring compared to the hyper-reality of pixels moving on our screens. When you suddenly replace your bad habits with good ones, habits that were previously boring and tedious now seem just a bit more exciting. You get to appreciate the small things in life again, which is very nice to have. Those tasks we found tedious, like working out, learning new things, exploring new things, suddenly become easier, and seeing as they are much more fulfilling, they also make you more at peace with your own self. But even with all that, the problem for me seems to come from even deeper within the pits of society, if you want to call it that. Happiness today as a feeling is heavily misunderstood. I mean, it's been like this for a while, but the internet just made the problem go to a whole other level. It made it more extreme, and it's because extreme brings the most attention. The path to happiness of today, it seems, is to attain status, attention, pleasure of the senses, and material possessions. Or at least that is what is embedded in us from the start. We are a bit too comfortable, I'd say, and it seems I'm speaking from a place of privilege here, but I feel like it's true. Comfort does make us weak. We mistake recreation for happiness, and that is all because we grew up surrounded by a society that values these things way too much. We have lost what I think are, okay, maybe not perfect for everyone, but at least better values to attain in the path of happiness, like virtue, wisdom, imagination, creativity, improvement of the self, courage, authenticity, and moderation. Holy shit, that's a long list, but I think those are values that, if pursued, can bring us closer to the peace of mind we all seek, at least compared to whatever superficial things we replace them with today. Growing up alongside the internet and realizing its disastrous effects on our brain today, it makes us realize how much time, focus, energy, and confidence that we lost because of it. The internet is here to stay for a very, very long time, and I do appreciate its presence, so of course we'll have to learn to live alongside it, and maybe use it for healthier things than social media and porn addiction. In the end, even with addiction controlling our usage, we still have the choice of what we consume and when we consume it, and in which way we consume it. Taking back control by ourselves is really the only option today. And yeah, dopamine detox is actually a pretty based method to make us realize how addicted we really were to all these distracting conveniences. When beforehand uncomfortable events were expected and something normal, they are now something we really don't have enough of today. And even then, those new uncomfortable situations were things that were considered easy in the past. But really that's the consequence of aiming for more and more convenience each time. We now have to seek discomfort ourselves to grow, instead of it coming to us. Although I'd say discomfort is coming to us in a different kind of way, through rising depression, anxiety, and loneliness. But let's not fret too much about it. I'm sure we'll all be fine. It'll just take a little bit of time and a little bit of effort on our parts. For now, we can become an example to the people around us, and for ourselves, first and foremost. And really, that's all I wanted to say for today, so thanks for watching.